Welcome, one and all, to another episode of I Could Never Be Here on the Popcorn Talk Network. Hope you guys have had a great start to your week. Hopefully you had a great weekend, a relaxing weekend to be able to now start your week off with some motivation here on I Could Never Be. That's what we're here for. We provide some motivation talking with people who you look up to, you esteem as really successful, and you think they've had an easy path. And we talk with them and share their stories, share their grind, share the times when maybe they got knocked down and how they got back up. Always start the show with a little advice for a better life. And I start this show with the lesson of knowing your why. And this was a lesson that we talked about last week, and it kind of really hit me again this week just from seeing different things and re-listening to last week's episode. And just knowing why you're chasing something, maybe having a goal. And it can be anything. You can literally say, my goal is to make $1 million or $10 million, and that's fine. But just knowing your why. Because so often in today's society, we feel like we're chasing things just for the chase. Just because we feel like if we're not chasing something, there's so many motivators out there who say if you're just sitting around and not doing anything and you're lazy. And so you feel like, I need to be doing something. But if you don't have the goal, then you don't have that satisfaction of achieving the goal. So set the why. Determine why you're doing something, no matter what it is, no matter what that why may be, and you will face and achieve a lot more satisfaction. Today's guest certainly knew his why. He wanted to play with the Beatles. All the way back, 1964, the first time that he saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he wanted to be in a rock band. He achieved both of those. And not only did he just play with members of the Beatles and just be in a rock band, but he's also played with several other major artists. The Rolling Stones, Jon Bon Jovi, John Mellencamp, Avril Lavigne, Mick Jagger, several others. In fact, he's played on more than 60 Grammy-nominated recordings, and his work and talents have been featured on over 300 million records worldwide. It's a staggering number. And today we're talking with him. We're talking about his book, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll. Please welcome Kenny Aronoff. Kenny, thank you so much for joining us, man. From the first time we met, it's been like 2 months now, I think.
Yeah.
And it's been like, I feel like just that conversation that we had really motivated me. I've been really looking forward to having you in here, talking through your book. Just incredible. I mean, just the things that you've accomplished in your life and just your ambition, I think, too, has just been fantastic. I want to be able to shout out for people who want to follow Kenny before and after the show, at Aronoff Official on Twitter, at Kenny Aronoff on Instagram. You can follow me at The Only MC on Instagram and on Twitter, and certainly, again, here on The Popcorn Talk, at The Popcorn Talk on Twitter and on Instagram. You're also available on Apple Podcasts. We have dozens of episodes there. Go like, comment, rate, subscribe. I want to shout out Enrita89, who left a great comment, said, thought-provoking and inspiring, talking about the show. So we appreciate that if you want to leave a comment. We're also live on YouTube. So we have people tuning in right now live. If you have a question, put it in the live chat. I monitor that during the show. I'm able to ask Kenny, be able to have you guys join us for this episode. That song, Jack and Diane, you talking about before the show, where you were when that song was being recorded. And that was almost like, you said, a make or break moment.
Oh, absolutely. 2 years prior was when I got into the John Mellencamp band, but 5 weeks after getting in the band, we came out to LA to make a record from Indiana. And I was so pumped, I told everybody, I mean, that was my Beatles, you know. Saw the Beatles at 10 years old, and I wanted to be a rock drummer in a famous rock band that made records and toured. I finally get in one after going through all this classical training and turning down the Jerusalem Symphony Orchestra and spending 4 more years trying to make it, and I finally get a break. 5 weeks later, we're in LA making a record, and in 2 days, I'm fired from the record.
Wow.
And so at that critical moment, as John's saying, and the reason why I was fired is because I didn't have enough experience making records to be played on the radio, to be #1 hit singles. And I never even occurred to me, you know, you just get in a band and play, right?
Once you're in the band, you're in the band.
Yeah, you're in the band. And John didn't really want me. I didn't even know until I interviewed him in the book. I said, when you fired me, I didn't fire you. It was the producer. Producer needed to get the record done quick. And back then, a drummer had to be able to play from beginning to end perfectly in time with feel, with the great sounds and the great everything, the great fills. You could not make a mistake because you were recording on tape, and it's more difficult. You can punch in easy, but punching out, you can hear it. So they built everything around the drums, everything. So I didn't have enough experience, and he wanted to move very fast to make a record. So he wanted his session guys. So when John's telling me to go home, I was at the Chateau Marmont. I remember the room was like 328 or something. And we had a band meeting, and he's telling me, you go home. As he's telling me to go home, I went, no, I'm not going home. There's no way. I was like mortified. I was devastated. I was like embarrassed. I'd rather go to Mars.
Yeah.
And so I said, I ain't going home. And then
going home is failure.
oh yeah, what am I supposed? I wouldn't even want to leave my house. So I got into this fight or fight mode, and I'm not even aware of that until I wrote my book and went, wow, man, I got this attitude, man. You push me up against the wall, I come out fighting. So I said, I'm not going home, and I'm like, well, am I still your drummer? I'm trying to negotiate a deal. He went, well, yeah, but you're not playing on the record. I went, well, I'm going to go in the studio, watch these guys, these session guys play on my record, and I'll learn from them. I'll benefit from that because I'm your drummer. You'll benefit because I'll get better. And I said, you don't have to pay me.
It's a win-win.
Which was the deal. That was the deal
Yeah.
breaker. But 2 years later, I'm in the studio. I vowed. I went home after 4 weeks of studying these guys and learning and writing down a whole new business model and a new approach to drumming, which was to serve the song, serve the artist, serve the producer, the label, whoever it is, to get that song on the radio. And I started practicing. I came up with a whole new, it was like 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. I started lifting weights, running 6 miles a day. I was just totally ninja. And my goal was to make the next record. And this is 2 years later. And now we're making this record. The Criteria Studios in Miami. And this guy walked, the producer, co-producer, walks in with this metal box. And I said, hey, what's that? He says, oh, this is the Lin 1 drum machine. This is the coolest thing right now. The Bee Gees are using it next door on their records. The new sound. I went, oh, cool. What are you using that for? He says, well, we're going to use it on this song, which happened to be Jack and Diane. And I went, are you kidding me? I'm going to be replaced by a machine now? I'd been replaced by 2 guys 2 years ago. Now I'm going to be replaced by a machine. Grabbed the machine, took the manual, went in the lounge and started learning how to program, and I came up with that whole beat at the beginning, which is all machine. You know, doosh, 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 doosh. And then I gave the box back to them, and I'm like, God, man, this stinks. I didn't use that word. I used a whole bunch of other words, but can't say that on this popcorn talk. So anyway, I was upset because I was like, what's next? Gonna get fired again? And then all of a sudden I'm summoned into the control room by John. He says, we need a drum solo right after the second chorus. And I'm like, oh my God. And at that moment I'm realizing, serve the song, serve the song, serve the song. What's gonna sound good on the radio? If I don't get this, I'll be fired. So I was under the gun, and so it was like either hit a home run with, 2 outs, 9th inning, full count. It's either a home run or come back next year. And so, long story short, was I came up with that drum break that, blew John up. It was his biggest hit ever.
Yeah.
Today, and then it launched my career. But the scary thing is, and the funny thing is, the day it went to #1, I was in that same hotel room at Chateau Marmont. Same room. It went to #1. It was like I'd been fired from the previous record in that room. Now it's #1. It was kind of cool, but the way my brain went was I went, oh, this is great. But then I freaked out thinking, oh, my God, can I do this again? I got to do this again. Once isn't enough. Oh, my God, how am I, how do you practice?
What's the next? What's the next?
Yeah, how do you practice that? How do you practice? See, I hate the unexpected, and being under the gun at that moment is a tough thing to manage, and people can become paralyzed and frozen and so fearful of those situations they avoid putting themselves in those situations. And I talk about that in my speaking, is how to deal with that. I mean, it's a heavy thing. You don't want anything to be an anchor in your life.
Did you realize at that point, you said that would, take your career to another level? Did you realize at that point that it would? Like when you're playing that song and you realize that makes the song sound the way it did you think at that point that would take your career on another trajectory?
No, not at all, because I wasn't experienced enough to know the impact that could possibly have on the radio. I was just glad at that point that I was on the song.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, by the way, that album, won 2 Grammys and sold millions of records. But the first song that was released was called "Hurt So Good," and that did really well. It got to #2. And back then, when you were #2 on the top 100, you were on every radio station, you were on MTV, it wasn't like being number 1 or 2 on some hillbilly, rating like, this is number 1 on the cats and dogs and pudding charts. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
This was the big one.
This was the big deal.
And it got to number 2 and stayed there number 2 for 6 weeks because I think Ebony and Ivory or Eye of the Tiger was suppressing us, and so we stayed there, and the record label thought they thought it was going to go down, so they released Jack and Diane. Jack and Diane goes flying up the charts. They both are in the top 10. Hurt So Good wouldn't leave the top 10. America just embraced it. It was this new sound, Americana. The videos we did were in Indiana. It was like, this was just a new everything. And that song, by the way, when we did playback of Hurt So Good at Cherokee Studios on Fairfax, there was I don't know, it was vice president of Polygram or whoever, some big wig was there. He went, I don't get it, man. He said, John, you should be more like Neil Diamond. John walked him to the door and literally kicked him in the ass out into the street, and we got dropped. And I think the way the story goes, and people correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what happened was somebody believed in us and started getting that song played on 2 major radio stations in America, and the ratings went way up on those songs and the call-ins, and so all of a sudden, bam, we were back in business.
I know the music industry now is kind of just you're gearing and picking the right times, and like you're saying, even then, the song was at number 2, and then we need to maybe put Jack and Diane in to be able to jumpstart that or to be able to get that out.
Yeah.
Was the industry as much control back then of trying to get people to play it, or was it more natural of like you're saying, you get it played on 2 radio stations and then it just picks up?
Well, the 2 big formats back then was you had album-oriented radio stations. They play every song on the album, and you had these DJs that people would listen to. You remember there was no computers or TV channels. It was all about radio, and people would listen, and you got to really like your DJ, and you trusted them. And if they said this is a good album, you buy it. And if they may have told you 3 other albums that were good, and you believe them now. Yeah. And there was this personal relationship, and then Top 100 radio, the singles radio would watch what the album-oriented radio stations were playing, and they'd see which song out of an album was getting the most hits or the most popular vote, and then they would take that song and play that song on the Top 100, and that's how it worked. And of course, you had A&R people, artists and relations people working radio. I'm sure there was money flying all over the place, but it was work. They didn't just like casually put it out there.
Yeah, and it was organic. Of like people are listening, people are calling in, people are making it rise up the charts, and that certainly, like you said, really took off. I mean, again, I gave these stats at the very beginning. Over 300 million records sold feature your work, and over 60 Grammy-nominated record. Is that staggering to you to hear, to look back and say, wow, we did make a lot of good music?
Yeah, well, now, when I wrote, the only reason why I knew those figures, the book company was saying, well, we have to promote this book. How many records you play on? I don't know.
So you never thought about it.
No, well, I know, because I'm the guy. I'm like a running back in football. I'm just focusing on the end zone, play by play, game by game, season by season, and all of a sudden at the end of your career, you go, oh my God, I'm the number 3 running back ever. That kind of thing. You just focus on doing your job, song by song, take by take, and I was, very aggressive about being a session player, because what happened was I made this, I got my break with Mellencamp, and then I really loved recording. I loved the challenge of experimentation. We used to experiment a lot because there were budgets, and we could spend 2 weeks on just one song and then throw it away and then start over again. But the point is, after 8 years, John just suddenly quit, and I went, what? And I just gotten divorced, had child support, had a house mortgage, had car payments, had normal stuff that people have, and suddenly went, oh my God, I'm at the mercy of this guy saying I'm working or I'm not. I didn't see that coming. Yeah. Now, he didn't quit for 3 years, but when he told me that, it was very believable. So suddenly, it hit me hard, and I was freaked out, and then pretty soon after, I went, you know what? I've been working for this one rock star for 8 years, now I'm going to go work with all the other ones. So I came out to LA and started pounding out, and I was getting called to play on records. See, just because you're in a successful rock band that's on the radio doesn't mean you're a session player. But see, with all that classical training I had a huge depth of knowledge, like writing charts. That's why always people say, wow, man, you work a lot. Well, it's because I can write out 50 songs and be writing songs for 10 more for another show. Like I'm doing the Latin Grammy Awards coming up, I'll have everything written out. And then I could, when I go to my studio, if I've got 12 songs to record, I write it all out, and I go bam, 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 bam. Then I'm working on this, and I'm working on that. And what happened was I started to make it really big in the session world, and then I got into it so much. I created, obviously, rock and roll was the first thing people went for. But then I started, Nashville was only 4.5 hours from Indiana. I went after the producers down there. Next thing you know, I'm recording with people like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash, the real country artists, and I've played with Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn. I'm thinking of George Jones and Conway Twitty, and I'm looking at the more traditional guys. And I created that whole thing. And then next thing you know, people were starting to realize I could play all styles. Recording with B.B. King, playing live with Ray Charles, Buddy Guy, but then Tony Iommi from Sabbath, and then Alice Cooper, and then the girls, Michelle Branch and Melissa Etheridge, Celine Dion. I mean, just all over the map. And that's the most difficult thing to do as a drummer, to get the reputation that you can play multiple styles. You're a touring drummer and a session drummer. It's just, to answer your question, I didn't plan it as much as I just worked my butt off and then went after what was my deepest desire, which was to make records and to tour and to feel good doing it.
Yeah, and you talk about a lot of that in your book. And I know talking about, one of the questions I was going to ask you was with Michelle Branch, and you talk about, one of the albums that you played for her, and I think you talked about, for studio and for session and for studio and playing live, and you voted, I think, 5 years in a row #1 drummer for pop and rock for studio and session, which was incredible. Which album, was there any of them that you didn't think would take off? Any of them that really made it big? You're talking about, when
I'll tell you one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when we were recording, and this is one of the biggest records I ever played on, was Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell 2. Okay? And when we were recording this song, the traditional length of a song on radio is 3.5 minutes, okay? And then book, it's like 325 pages. That book was 600 pages at one point. We had to shrink it down. But the point is, that song ended up being like 8 minutes long or something, or maybe something like that. And I'm like, boy, you guys are wasting your money, but hey, man, pay me, I'm cool. And
as long as I get it.
This long, huge thing. And then a year later, I'm called to do more on this record, because they were real slow at doing it and very meticulous. And they said, one of the songs we're going to do is, I'll do anything love, but I won't do that. An intro we're adding to it. I went, are you nuts? That's now going to be 10.5 minutes long. You're never going to get that. That's never going to be played on the radio. It was #1 in 20 countries in 1 week. And then sold over, oh my God, it's way up there. I mean, it's like, it could be up there near, I don't know, 30, 40 million records by now. I don't know, something like that. It's crazy. So I was wrong. And I was wrong about another one, a Patti Smythe duet with Don Henley. Sometimes Love Just Ain't Enough. And it was right when grunge came out. And I went, guys, they're never going to play this. They're playing Nirvana. They're playing Soundgarden. They're playing Pearl Jam. They're playing Mother Love Bone. They don't want to hear this crap. Boy, was I wrong. That was like #1 on every chart except for the top 100 was #2 for 6 weeks.
Wow.
It was, I was just wrong.
You started out playing when you were 10, and you had seen the Beatles play on the Ed Sullivan Show, 1964. Do you still remember that? I mean, vividly, of watching that.
Oh, yeah.
What emotions did you have?
Well, first of all, there was nothing to watch on TV back then, so me and my twin brother are outside playing, and my mom gets on the porch. This is like Western Massachusetts, kind of a beautiful mountainous area. My mom jumps on the porch and says, at night, she says, boys, come in here real quick. Come on, run, let's go. I got to show you something. I'm like, uh-oh, we did something wrong, and my brain's going through, what I do. And I get in there, she's pointing to this black and white RCA TV set with the rabbit ears, and tinfoil clumps on it to get better reception. And there's the Ed Sullivan Show, and there's these 4 guys with long hair, suits, playing electric guitars and bass, and the lead singer goes, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, I know, I was like blown off my, there was nothing like that I'd ever seen or felt. And I'm electrified. And I said to Mom, who are these guys? She said, well, they're the Beatles. So there was nothing close to that. Maybe Christmas, And I'll never forget that. But the deepest, heavy experience that I experienced was 50 years later. I'm called to play on a TV show, a CBS special called The Night That Changed America, that 72 million people, I was one of them, saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Wow.
Honoring them, and now I'm playing with Paul, McCartney, and Ringo, the Starr, the 2 remaining Beatles, honoring them. I mean, I'm like, wow, that's a story. That's real.
Did you know right when you got the call? Were you expecting? You weren't expecting the call?
No, I didn't know. I didn't even know the show was going to happen. But when I got the call, it's from Don Was. Hey, are you available on this date? I'm like, oh my God. Oh my, and he saw the Beatles too. But, I was just blown out of my mind. And I just gave this talk last weekend. It's about how to find your bliss. Kind of gets into your whole thing of your why. And okay, so the bliss, to those who don't know, it's extreme happiness. How do you find it? And I dug deep, started thinking about that, and here's what I came up with. I found my bliss because I realized what my purpose in life is when I saw that show. I didn't consciously have that discussion, but going back, I went, wow. I realized what my purpose in life was after that show, which was to make people feel good. Now, let me explain more what that's about. I was drawn to the drums because it made me feel good. I was drawn to playing music because it made me feel good. But because I'm such an excitable guy, when I'm playing the drums and playing music, I started to notice the guys in the band were being affected by that, made them feel good, which made me feel even better because I was... they were getting off on me.
Yep.
And then you're playing in front of audiences, and I've played in front of as many as 1 to 1 million, and you make an audience feel good, and then you get that back, and then you give it back, and you get it back, and then you and the band and you, and all this thing. I mean, that's a huge thing, and that's all under the heading of making people feel good, including myself.
Yeah.
And that's
it's a connection.
Yeah. It's real humans, real live. It's like there's nothing like it. Look, humans are designed. Our purpose on the planet is about feeling. Ironically, with all the technology, it's kind of like getting away from it. But the point is, we are feeling creatures. Through feeling is how we learn the deepest things about ourselves. We're spiritual, we're mental, and we're physical. And feelings are all tied into all 3 of those things.
You were self-taught. What does that mean? I mean, for someone who is self-taught drums, I played drums growing up, and I took lessons from someone. I mean, were you taking any lessons, or was this something you were just listening to drums? And I know you got a snare drum, and then you got, I think, maybe like 1 cymbal. Yeah, it's something. I mean, was that just figuring out what sounded good?
Well, in 4th grade, they ask you what instrument you want to play, and I said drums, and then they give you a rubber pad with some sticks, and the band director's kind of like just teaching you so that you can play a snare drum part with the concert band thing. I'm like, by the time I was 13, I was playing in clubs, man. Well, at 10, I started my own band. When I asked my mom to call up the Beatles as soon as I saw them. I wanted to play with them.
The Alley Cats.
Yeah, and then I started my band called the Alley Cats because my mom didn't have their number. Yeah.
Come on, Mom.
Yeah, come on. She didn't call them up. She wouldn't buy me a drum set. And so I bought a snare drum and a cymbal. I borrowed money from them. I was gardening at 25 cents an hour. Got a snare drum cymbal, and I formed this band called the Alley Cats, and we played Beatles music, of course. And So I was self-taught, meaning I kind of listen and I try to figure out the part, or the guitar player might say, no, he's doing this. Or you learn that. I learned that way. There was no, where I grew up, there was nobody teaching rock and roll drums. It was all new. There was no mentor to tell me how to make it as a rock star. There was no books on it. There was no school of rock back then. That's why I went into classical music, because when in our family we all went to college, and my parents asked me, well, you're going to have to pick a major. I went, well, music, but it was all classical. It just so happened the Boston Symphony Orchestra, their summer festival was 3 miles from my house in the summer, and I started studying with the percussionists from that orchestra, and he basically kicked my ass and taught me enough how to play mallets, which is vibraphone or marimba, and enough to read and play legitimate snare drum and timpani to get into the University of Massachusetts, which had a program, for classical. I played orchestras and all kinds of. It was a really big learning curve for me. But in 1 year, I transferred to the #1 orchestra, school in the country, Indiana University School of Music, called Jacobs School of Music now. Well, actually, I have my own. After 20 years, I have a 20-year scholarship there.
You and from 1993 and then 1997, you were associate professor there.
Oh wow, you did
as
your
well.
work. Yes,
Of course,
I
I
did.
even know you left out the part where you studied in Colorado at Juilliard for the summer because the one was it a cellist
Yeah.
you were hoping was there.
Tracy, yeah.
She didn't show up.
Okay, now you brought it up. So I'm at UMass, and this hot cellist was hot as they can be in the orchestra world, but she was hot, and I heard her talking about going to Aspen. I'm like, what's Aspen? And it's a summer orchestral program for really talented musicians that you have to audition to, but it's run by Juilliard, which is one of the top 3 schools in the country for classical music. I auditioned, and the way you audition, they say you have to, out of 4 categories, snare drum, multiple percussion, mallets, and timpani, you audition, send your tape in, and I did it on all 4, thinking, I'll get extra credit. I never heard from them. The last day of school, I'm leaving with, I had my whole summer planned. I had an Allman Brothers type band, and I was going to study with the percussionists again. And I'm leaving school, and I went, oh, damn, I forgot my mail. I went back, and
Good thing you did.
Yep. And you read it in the book. I thought it was a check, and I opened it up. I'm accepted to Aspen, and I have to go in 2 weeks. I think I was an alternate. Somebody canceled. I get there, cellist didn't show up. I'm the worst percussionist there. I mean, my reading skills stunk. These kids that were there had been playing timpani and marimba since they were in diapers, and I'm just playing scales. And I think the teacher there was a little bit like, whoa, I picked the wrong guy. But he was the one that taught at Indiana University. And he was brilliant. He was a very intense guy, very, very intelligent, deep-minded guy. And so I chose to follow him, and he tried to discourage me, and I demanded an audition. And I auditioned in Colorado, and I went straight to Indiana for 4 years. And in the summer, the 4 years at Indiana, I auditioned every year to go to Tanglewood, which was the #1 student orchestra in America, run by the Boston Symphony Orchestra, 3 miles from my house. I struck out 3 times, 3 consecutive years. The 4th year, I auditioned again, and I got in.
So situations like that, and you talk about them a lot in the book, and I know just from knowing your life of you've been in positions where you're not the best, where you come in and you're feeling maybe overwhelmed. And I think a lot of situations like that, people have 2 choices. They either look at that and say, well, this wall is too high, I can't climb it. Or they look at the wall and say, you know what, I'm going to climb this wall, I'm going to get to the top, and I'm going to enjoy the view, and I'm going to just work my butt off. And you've always done the second. Why and how?
Well, I don't usually say this, but I think the bottom line, it's in my DNA. And like my grandfather fought his way out of Russia before the Russian Revolution. I mean, that's got to be a part of it. I mean, he literally fought his way out. He was going to be killed by the Bolsheviks. He gets out, he ends up at Ellis Island, Jersey, and he had my dad. My dad had to have picked up some of that stuff from my grandfather. My dad did 1 year of college, Syracuse, or maybe before he went to college, he ended up in what would be considered the Army Air Force, and he ran the last 13 missions bombing Hitler over Germany in these big-ass bombers that got blown out of the sky. He saw planes dropping all over the place. This is like a 19-year-old kid, Then he went back and did, 4 or 5 years of college, and then raised a family. And I mean, he was a cool guy, very strong, very kind, very deep thinker, but he was a badass too. I mean, he was had boundaries, discipline, and so I mean, I think it's in my DNA, or I learned it from him. So but I also grew up in the hippie time, so we rebelled from all that, but I still had it in me. And when push came to shove, I had what it took, to persevere, to work hard, be self-disciplined, persevere, never give up. And it wasn't easy, man. I was mortified at times. I got, as you read in there, I mean, the conductor at Aspen just literally destroyed me. Made fun of me. People were laughing, and I could have easily just gone home. And
was there ever the thought of quitting?
No, there was well, I mean, I may have wanted to quit, but my inner soul would not allow me. So what I do, and this is where I developed the 8 hours a day practice, 7 days a week. I'll show you. I'm not as talented as you, but I'm going to work twice as hard, and I would catch up. I have this thing called RPS that I talk about in my speeches, which is the repetition of any skill is the preparation, P, to be successful. Repetition, preparation, success. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, a golf swing, an athlete, a musician. You practice. Practice. It's not that old thing. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. And I still use this whole method when I get, there's no shortcuts. You want to be good at something. You want to be good at your diet. You want to be good at lifting weights. You want to be good at anything. It just put in the time. Man, there's no shortcuts. And if you're looking for something to land in your lap, it ain't going to happen. And there's guys like me who come and steal what you're waiting for.
Love that. You certainly played in a lot of big name bands, and you guys are touring, and you talk about this and just the atmosphere that you guys are experiencing with huge crowds and women and the times of the hippiness. And how did people stay focused? Because there's one thing to be able to get the drive to be able to get there, but to be able to stay there, you need the focus. How did you do it? And was there ever anyone who kind of got off track in the bands, and you guys had to be like, hey, no, what do you, like, we're here, shape up?
Well, guys got fired, and, in the Mellencamp band, if you didn't produce, you'd get dumped. I mean, we would rehearse from 11 to 5, 7 to 11, 5 days a week, till we made it. It was a business. It was, and that's the way we did it. I mean, I have a saying, because it goes like this: I'll never be as great as I want to be, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life trying to be as great as I can be. And that's like the running back. The greatest, you name the greatest running back. Does he get a touchdown every time he gets the ball? Hell no. He keeps trying, though. All he's looking at is the end zone, play by play. He might fumble one time, he might break his ankle one year, and then he has to come back and try again. It's just that attitude of always persevering, always trying, always going for it. And once you realize that if you keep trying and you make it, and you're successful, that doesn't mean you're successful for the rest of your life. That's the equation to keep becoming successful. You've accepted being a human being. You've accepted the process. You've accepted that to be successful and stay successful, you have to keep doing the things that got you successful. It's like someone says, how do you do that? Well, I practice 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, but then how did you keep getting all the work? I practice 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, there's other things involved, like communication skills and being able to get along with people, because I could be recording with B.B. King on Monday, Smashing Pumpkins on Tuesday, Bob Seger on Wednesday, Bob Dylan on Thursday, and somebody else on Friday in 5 different studios. It's like working for 5 different corporations. You have to be able to get in there and serve. I'm in the service business. Get along with everybody, do my job, get the song on the radio, be number one, go home, do it again the next day. And dude, I am challenged. You never know when the red light comes on. It's like, I recognize when, it's like, Mayday, Mayday, we're in trouble. Where there's something that's not going right, and it's you. And you have to figure out okay, I got to solve this problem. And I've done this. Happened this year. It was a weird thing. I was going between a 3-feel and a 2-feel. It was a Latin thing meets a rock thing, and it was this kind of, it went from one side to the next, and I knew how to do it, but for some reason my body from repetition wanted to do something else. And I was trying to work it out, and the producer said, take a break. We're gonna have lunch. I went, no. I stayed there while they ate lunch for 30 minutes and went over it. When I got it, I did it 30 more times. So I not only got it, I knew it. Mm-hmm. And when it was time to record, I got it. But that moment, there was that panic and fear. Oh my God, oh my God. And then I went, dude, you always persevere. All you have to do is put in the time, stay on it, slowly but surely, ignore everybody else. You're still panicking inside, but I got it.
And 30 minutes. Well, and what is 30 minutes? I mean, if you look at that, of like, if most people would look at it and be like, give up lunch?
Yeah.
What? It's like, that's 30 minutes for the success of nailing it.
Yeah.
And the success that will produce, because the people who you nail it for, you get that reputation.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Exactly.
Do you ever see things, and people who are so dedicated, and a lot of articles, they're like, oh, he sacrificed. He did that. Do you ever see it as a sacrifice?
Hell no. I love it. I love it. I mean, this morning, I wake up, I spent an hour working on this new speech, went to the chiropractor to become taller. Do I seem taller? And then I worked out in my gym because to solidify what I had done, that's what the chiropractor said. Then I did a whole bunch of work, of course, in between. Then I'm here. I'll go back. I'm going to do cardio. And then I'm going to, I worked on, I practiced on the drums. And then a certain technique, I have a 30-minute routine I do that completely defines my style. I just do it every day. Actually, on tour, I do it 3 times a day. Even that's a good example of like, even on a show day, I will do this routine, which is specific to make me sound great right now. I came up with a routine. It just does all the most important things that I need to do when I play the drums, with feet and hands going all at the same time. So I'll do that for 30 minutes, like a power workout, and then before sound check. Then after sound check, before the show, I'll do it again in the dressing room. And then if I'm really super cool, I'll do it before I go to bed so I wake up warmed up.
Wow.
And that I believe in that system. Even where I'm at, talk about trying to stay successful, that's what that is. That's like, you've made it, I got this. Not necessarily. You've got this if you keep doing the things that got you where you are now. The things that made you get successful, you should never give up on. Those are the things that made you successful. Most likely, those are the things that are going to keep you successful.
You have so many stories in here, and we were talking before of some of the stories that didn't make it, where it was a 600-page book and it got down to 325. Give me 2 stories, and you talked about who was it? Cameron Diaz. And what? Do you have another story? Like, tell us a story.
I got the Dave Grohl story and the Cameron Diaz
All right.
story. Which
what do
one
we got?
do you want?
Both.
Oh, we'll start with the guy.
We got 5 minutes. We got time for both.
Dave Grohl. I'm in a hotel. I'm hungover. Just played with the Buddy Rich Big Band in New York. I go downstairs. I'm paying the bill. All of a sudden, a skinny little guy, Hyper, comes up. Yo, Kenny, what's happening? It's Dave. He says, dude, I got this new band, man. We're going to showcase. You want to come tonight? I went, oh, no, dude, I got to go home. I said, my fly. He says, I said, what's the name of your band? He says, Foo Fighters. I went, wow, that's a weird name. Foo Fighters. Oh, that's kind of cool. All right, good luck. That's that one. Cameron Diaz. I'm at the Sunset Marquee at the Whiskey Bar. And I'd left the Mellencamp band 2 years prior. I bump into them, which was kind of awkward. I'm recording with Tony Iommi for his record with Billy Corgan. 13-hour day session that day with a 45-minute break. And I know I have to do one the next day. Mm-hmm. I'm in the bar, and Cameron Diaz had just made it big with that movie, about Mary.
Something About Mary.
Yeah. And he was talking to Jimmy Chamberlain, actually, and I wanted to meet Jimmy Chamberlain. Someone's kind of set me up from the Pumpkins band. He wanted to see what would happen because I'd never met Jimmy, and I replaced him on the tour. Mm-hmm. So he taps Jimmy on the shoulder, and Jimmy turns around and we're talking, and it was just, I was stressed out by the whole day and everything. I didn't say what I wanted to say, and he turned around, would continue to talk to Cameron. I tapped him on the shoulder again, and I said, listen, man, I'm sorry. I want to let you know I'm just honored to play in your shoes. You're an amazing drummer. He's one of my favorite drummers and one of my favorite people. We've become really good friends. And I'm just like so honored. And man, the parts you came up with and the songs and what a band. I mean, blah, blah, blah. Man, you were rocking. Dude, all right. Have fun. Bye. I went out there, and when the bar started to close, I was in the lounge because it was too many people in the bar. All of a sudden, Cameron Diaz comes over to me, sits on my lap, puts her arms around me, and up close, she's very, very beautiful. And when she smiles, that beautiful mouth and those eyes, and she whispers in my ear, and I swear I could feel those lips on my ear, and she's going, I heard what you said to Jimmy. That was really cool. Now, at that moment, back then, at 2 in the morning, gorgeous woman on the planet Earth sits on a rock star drummer's lap at the Sunset Marquee. It's usually like, room 301, let's rock. What do you want? Drinks, food? What do you want? A horse? A boat? I mean, what do you want? Let's go. But my point is, not that she would have even considered me. My point is, in my brain, I went, nope, you have a session tomorrow, 13 hours. It's going to be badass. If you try to have any, you got to get to bed right now so that you can kick ass. And work has always come first over everything. Everything. Hence my third marriage. Work has always come over everything. It's just the way I'm built. So I'm not saying that she would have even, but
you said no to her.
I
said
no to me. I didn't even ask her. I didn't even try. But I would have tried. I would have said, dude, what do you want to do, man? You want to have another drink? Let's go. Another bar? What's your favorite bar in town? We would have done something. I mean, sat on my lap at 2 in the morning. Come on. This seemed like a logical thing to say. Let's keep going. And then, yeah, those are the 2 stories that didn't make the book.
That's incredible, and I know you're coming out with another book too. So we're really excited for that one. I want to go to the live chat. Some people are asking some questions. Daniel says, "How did it feel to be playing behind Jerry Lee Lewis?" Said then 82-year-old Jerry Lee Lewis kicking the stool back and pumping that piano at Riot Fest in Chicago a few months back. I know you play for Jerry at a lot of shows. So like, how does that feel to play with him?
Well, he's one of the 2 remaining. It's like him and Willie Nelson. I mean, just to play with him is iconic because he's the originator of rock and roll. I mean, everybody looked up. Elvis looked up to him. Carl Perkins looked up to him. Little Richard looked up to him. The Stones looked up to him. The Beatles looked up to him. This guy was the inventor. So even, it's an honor to be on stage with this guy. And his attitude is still the same. No set list. You follow me, and the arrangements are different. It's just real live music. No backing tracks, no click tracks, no nothing. And he'll go on stage and say, I'm going to mess up the band. Watch this. He's all about and that night at Riot Fest, they were doing the mosh pit, and they were he walked on, he saw what was happening, he took off his jacket, undid his shirt, rolled up his sleeves, and did stuff I hadn't seen him do. The classic, kicked the chair, stood up and played. And on the side of the stage, you had people, Wolfmother was watching, you had people from Elvis Costello's band watching, you had people from Beck watching. Everybody from the other 4 stages were watching Jerry Lee Lewis. He's iconic, amazing.
Wow, and you guys have a number of shows coming out. I think one is LA on November 17th.
I think, is that Cerritos? Or
Yeah, in the LA area. Final question, what do you consider to be success? It's a word that's thrown out a lot.
Wow.
What is your definition of success?
Wow. Nobody's asked me that before. Well, success to me is being the best that you can be at what you do, and that never ends. Just pushing yourself and be the best that you can be, at what you're trying to do. And then the other aspect is to make a living doing it. That's nice. I call that success.
Yeah. Well, I think you've been very successful, and certainly in life, in your music, in writing this book. And if you guys need, literally the back of the book, John Mellencamp, Melissa Etheridge, Jon Bon Jovi, John Fogerty, Ringo Starr. That's who he has writing reviews for the back of his book. If you need any motivation to be able to check that out. Man, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in. I really do. Again, we met after a Jerry Lee Lewis show a couple months ago, and I was like, I need to be able to just have a longer conversation with him, and I feel like it'd just be so inspiring and motivating, and it was.
Well, and the next book is the how I did that, and then I have a speaking business that I go and speak, and I talk about, how to be successful and all that stuff. So there's a lot more coming, and I'm still doing everything else I've been doing.
Yeah, not slowing down anytime soon.
No.
Not at all. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of I Could Never Be on the Popcorn Talk Network. Certainly, you can catch us after the show. We're all on social media. You can follow the Popcorn Talk at the Popcorn Talk on Instagram and on Twitter. You can follow me at the Only MC on Instagram and on Twitter, at Aronoff Official on Twitter, at Kenny Aronoff on Instagram. Shout him out, give him some love. He's very active on there. And certainly, we're live here every single Monday. For those of you who joined us today, we'd love to see you back next week in the live chat. We're talking with people who have achieved success. So you think, man, this path was easy for them. They had money, they knew people, but I guarantee at some point they thought about maybe giving up or trying a different path, and we uncovered those stories. We're also on Apple iTunes. Go over there, give us 5 stars, give us a little comment, and we'll feature you at the beginning of next week's episode. Much more to come this season on I Could Never Be. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.